Force staff, Border Force staff who man the patrol boats which intercept the migrants are going to go on strike in a move that could disrupt operations to tackle the crossings. Do you know what I'm actually beginning to think? Maybe these people going on strike is a good thing, because they won't be picking people up halfway across the channel and bringing them here. Maybe it'll actually slow down the number of successful crossings. Anyway, to talk about this more is Tony Smith, former head of UK Border Force. Tony, we've discussed this before, and you've said to me quite clearly that when the Border Force, intercept these people, they would like nothing more than to not have to bring them to the UK. They want to do their job as the custodians of our borders, but unfortunately they're told they've got to. Is this partly why, do you think, they're sort of going on strike, because they're also sick to death with government policy?
There's an esprit de corps in the Border Force, Alex, which you would only know about if you worked there. I was there for 40 years. It's a bit like the military, the police. I don't know, even if you journalists have got one. But they're a big family, and they work together, they stick together, and it's pretty ropey out there. I was out there last year with the boats, with them all. And, you are really working in some pretty dreadful conditions. People are coming on board, they're throwing up all over you. We have had dead bodies. And you've also got the expert teams that are trying to gather the evidence on the pilots who are ripping off their shirt and trying to dive down into the boat so you can't identify who the pilot was. You're taking pictures of them. You've got to get on board, do state. There's a lot to it, Alex, and they have been beaten up on pay, to be honest, over the years. They have not done as well as most of the other public service, public servants have, in other sectors. So you can see why they've got the I can understand why they've got the they don't want to go on strike, Alex. That's the bottom line. They really don't. They don't join the Border Force because they want to go on strike. They think they're trying to protect the border. They do protect the border, catch a lot of drugs, a lot of weapons. We do a lot of good stuff. But this boat thing, has hit the media big style. Of course it has, because it's an affront to public security. They bear the brunt of public criticism, and so I'm one of them, and I support what they're trying to do, and I think we should try and support what they're trying to do, Alex, because it is a really tough job that they're doing, and I wish you could go out there, with a camera and see what it's like, because it is pretty dreadful conditions that they're operating day in. I tell you
what, Tony, I would. If you've got any connections who can fix that up, I'm more than happy to go out with a camera and show what the Border Force are doing, because I think the public have a right to know what goes on. When it comes to these small boats and the situations that, the border staff are facing. And when you describe it like that, people throwing up dead bodies, I'm sure some people might even be violent, you also get the impression, actually, that the nature of the job has probably changed quite significantly from 10 years ago to today, when we have this illegal migration crisis. So I am sort of slightly sympathetic to people going, hey, 10 years ago, I might be opening the boot of a car and shining a torch in it. Now the game is completely different, and I haven't seen my pay reflecting that at all.
Yeah, well, we opened lorries. We didn't have boats in my day, thankfully, but we had a lot of lorries. And I opened lorries, or not me personally, but my teams did, and found dead bodies in there, in refrigerated lorries. We've seen lots of tragedies, all caused by human smuggling. And what the Border Force want to do is take the smugglers out and send the illegal immigrants back, which is what you advocate on your show, of course. That's what they really want to do. They can't talk to you, Alex. They're not allowed to. They have to go to the Home Office, press office to speak to, and that's why I come out here and talk to you, to tell you how they're feeling, what's going on out there, and giving you the other side of the story.
Well, I'm pretty sure on that note, I don't think the Home Office are going to be tripping up over themselves to allow me and a camera to go on one of these boats and see what circumstances are like. Have there been any increase in Border Force staff? And we know the wages aren't really going up, but one thinks, given the sort of level of crisis we're facing, surely the staff numbers should have gone up.
Well, I think we need to call out some of these announcements. So, what happens really in reality is the deck chairs get shuffled. There ain't any extra new money. So you get an announcement, we're going to build a new border security command. You're going to have a crack team of caseworkers to deal with deportations, all that sort of stuff, which translates in reality into moving a bunch of civil servants or officers from one task to another. It does not mean whole rafts of new people coming into the job. Even when they do come into the job, recruitment's hard. Training's about a year just to get the basic training. And this all comes down to the CSR settlements that are going through now, Alex. We're now talking about 2.5% going to defence. You know what's going to happen there. All the other Whitehall departments, including the Home Office, are going to get squeezed. There'll be people in the Home Office now looking over their shoulders thinking, oh my God, can we afford the people we've got? How are we going to cut back? And I I can tell you, usually the border force and immigration enforcement are at the bottom of the pile, behind the police and security services for whatever reason. They will feel the brunt of this. They will not be a load of money, I expect, going anywhere near the border force immigration enforcement teams in this round. So it's a pretty tricky task now for us, I think, to work out, well, what kind of a border security team will we have? What kind of a border force are we going to have in 3 to 5 years' time? How are we going to cope with increasing pressures from international organised crime, not just from the boats, Alex, but from, synthetic opioids are coming in. We're getting more and more problems with firearms coming in. We've got the common traveller. This whole, I mean, I could spend all day telling you about all the problems you'd have if I was the head of the border force these days, which I'm not anymore. So, I mean, I just think, people just need to understand that the border force are really there saving lives. That's what they're doing. They did not join the border force to save lives, but they have to save lives. Because that's the legal environment they work under.
Right, let's actually pick up on that, because looking at this copy in front of me, I just want to bring something to your attention, because this particular report says that crews who work on the border force cutters last threatened to go on strike in 2022, and that was after the then Home Secretary Priti Patel said that they should be turning migrants' dinghies back in the Channel. The PCS, the union, said it was totally opposed to morally reprehensible pushback tactics, and Dame Priti subsequently abandoned the plans after the union joined forces with the charity Care for Calais. So there is something here that makes me think that it's maybe not as clean cut as all border file. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? So is this sort of union driven here because it's sort of been taken over by leftists, or is there a real reluctance because of the sort of horrible, ghoulish things that Border Force see to push boats back?
So there's two unions out there, Alex. There's the Immigration Service Union, which I was a member of, which was founded about 45, 50 years ago because the PCS were too politically left of the business. And a lot of Border Force officers said, well, I don't want to be in that union. They ask you when you join, which union do you want to join? And I did want to join a union, actually. I think most people do, but we got fed up with them. And actually, I had a real problem with them during the Olympics. I don't know if you remember, but I was running all that stuff and they want to go on strike then the week before just to make things really, really hard for everybody coming to the Olympics. So there is a political wing at the top of the Public and Commercial Services Union that are in that bag you've just described, and that is true, and we need to be cognizant of that. However, I think the bulk of the officers on the ground, who certainly the Immigration Service Union, we didn't want to go on strike. We did have a strike agreement, but we didn't ever want to go on strike. The worst we ever did was work to rule, which would actually basically check everything and check everybody all the time, and queues would build up. That was the sort of industrial strategy under the ISU, and I think so. There is. You're right. There is a political wing in the civil service that is very left, that is disruptive, and I don't think that's what this is about, Alex. I think this is about officers who feel really, really hard done by. As I say, they've fallen behind other public sector workers in some way. They're doing a pretty tough job, and all they want is a decent deal, and I'm going to back them for that.
Yeah, I tell you what, Tony, I wouldn't want to be part of UK Border Force, to be honest. I don't think it sort of, looks to me like the most joyful occupation at the moment.